Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's Mindful Morning podcast with Dr. Matt Gloviak and special guest Dante Royster. Dante Royster, a veteran mortgage broker and author of The Ultimate Mortgage Guide, is dedicated to empowering lives through financial literacy. With over 2 decades of experience since his start in 2002, Dante attributes his success to lessons from his parents' nurturing upbringing. Despite challenges during the 2007 real estate collapse, he founded Full Court Services, learning resilience firsthand. Today, as the founder of Epic Mortgage, Dante coaches clients through the mortgage maze, prioritizing relationships over transactions. As a regional mortgage broker licensed in multiple states, his mission is to make home ownership available for all, exemplified in his book, An Ongoing Commitment to Financial Education. Welcome, Dante. And, I have to be very appreciative of you, and I want to extend my gratitude right here and now. As I was reading through your bio for everybody, you brought me back to 2007. And I remember that was the year I bought my very first property. I was 24 years old, purchased a condo, two bath condo in an up and coming community. And guess what? Right thereafter, the economy essentially collapsed. The place was near worthless. And it was in 2015 when you stepped in, when we were looking for our first single family home. We were pregnant with our first child. And because of you and the planning you put together, we were able to purchase our first home. And, more recently moved onward. And just, I've really appreciated all your guidance, all your support, and, helping me out. And I know that you're helping so many others. But thank you. And how are you doing?
Well, that was very nice. Thank you very much. I'm doing well, and yeah, I mean, that's a whole part of the journey is really helping people, and it's great to hear those types of stories. Because sometimes you forget. You just forget how much of an impact it was, and I've been able to kind of take a step back a little bit, and that's why I wrote the book just to kind of share some of the stories that have really hit home for me. But I'm glad we were able to get it done.
No, absolutely. And, this is one of the important things to really think about in, being in the capacity of being a mortgage broker. I know many people might think about the financial end of it, and it's true, crunching a lot of numbers, figuring out, based on somebody's income, other assets, and so on, what types of properties they can move into, what options are available, and just so much ultimately goes into that. But when it comes down to it, as you just said, it's all about helping people.
No doubt. I mean, that's why I got in the business. It was kind of a win-win situation. Obviously, the whole concept was to help someone achieve what they were looking to do. And that's kind of our motto is your dreams, your goals, let's plan together. So, goals are kind of steps towards your overall dream. And so we have to kind of look at each individual and see, hey, what is your dream? What are you trying to do? And see how we can help you out. So, yeah, no, that's a motto that I've always stuck with. And, first and foremost is helping people.
No, absolutely. And when you're there to be able to help everybody and that's your ultimate mission, everything else seems to just naturally fall into place, from that point. And, when we think about it too, the service that you're providing and the help that you're providing is something that goes a very long way. And I know while people might not necessarily think mortgage brokerage, mental health, combine the two together, but from my perspective and the reality of the world is it does have a significant impact on mental health. And really what I'm getting at is, we take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and we talk about the basic fundamental needs of a person's existence, making sure you're satiated, have enough water, making sure that you're eating, making sure you have air to breathe, making sure that you're in a safe environment, and you have adequate shelter. That is a big part of it. And when people don't have adequate shelter and they feel unsafe, everything else tends to trickle down from that point. And so I'm wondering, on your end, when it comes to, acquiring shelter for families, having a safe place to live, how much is that a part of your mind and what you do?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, definitely. I mean, what you bring up is so important. If you think about finances, I mean, that's usually the number one cause for divorce.
Yeah.
I mean, so your family structure is kind of all based on how much money you have, and what can we afford, from groceries, from, if you're choosing to have children, to have a house over, a roof over your head. So, I mean, these are all things that come into play, and all root of it is just the foundation. The foundation is having, a home for you and your family. And can we afford? What can we afford? And that's what we do. And sometimes it's funny because when you take a step back obviously we have a license. I'm a licensed mortgage originator. I had to take a test. I had to do all these things. And so yeah, I didn't have to go to school like a lawyer or a doctor for 6 additional years or what have you. But what I do for people impacts their life and stuff that they'll remember from years on years.
No, and absolutely. And as you said, really a lot goes into it and figuring out, what people are going to be able to afford. Said finances are one of the top reasons for divorce. Usually when we go through that, it's usually communication, finances. And we know oftentimes people aren't communicating appropriately about finances, perhaps
Sure.
hiding accounts, not being honest with how much they're spending on different types of things, or maybe they even have an addiction to spending on something else. And it's always so important to ensure that we do live a balanced lifestyle financially, especially when it comes to purchasing a house. And I know that right now in today's market, it's been a very difficult time for many people to move into a new home, especially for those first time home buyers. We've seen the interest rates have gone up. We've seen some inflation given the interest rates have gone up. A lot of people who are currently in their homes at lower interest rates are reluctant to move because they don't want to take something on with a higher interest rate. So with that being said, there's a lot fewer houses available on the market. At least that's what I'm aware of and reading in the news these days. So a lot less houses, raising the cost, and then we have the rates of inflation. How are we working through all this? Is it even possible, for somebody to get a new home these days?
It's definitely possible. It just starts with planning. And like you said, it's financing is difficult because, we grow up in a society where, if you go back to school, there's usually a right and a wrong. So it's kind of black and white. But when you get into life, life is so gray. There's so much gray matter, and there's not really a right way or a wrong way per se on just how you handle your finances and what can you do. There's more of like, you could do this or you could do this. And so you have to kind of choose your path. It's kind of like that book, right? Remember back in the day with the books, kind of choose your adventure.
Yes.
Hey, you can go to page 37 if you want to, jump over this river, and you can go to page 22 if you just want to take a nap. So it really is an adventure book that we're on. And so we have to kind of just look at each individual situation and kind of see what makes sense for them. And so, really, I look at myself kind of like a guidance counselor in a way where I just provide options
Mhm.
of what's available. And the reason why I've chosen the broker model is because the broker has access to multiple lenders. So when I talk to people, I'm not just saying, hey, this is all I can provide. It's like, no, I got this option. I can do this option. I can also do this. And what does that mean? Hey, you could buy a house that needs renovation.
Mhm.
You could see maybe an ugly sore, but it's in a great community. And it's like, but man, all the stuff has still got the shag carpet, still got the wooden panels. But you can, with a renovation loan,
Popcorn ceiling.
popcorn ceilings. So,
Had that growing up. My
oh
parents
my,
did too.
oh man, I had popcorn ceilings in the first condo I bought. I remember that. And I was like, OMG. But you can, with a renovation loan, you can renovate that house. And that's not always given as an option to people when they go maybe to a bank per se. That's not something banks really want to offer and not really interested in that business. You can also look at potentially, like you said, with the higher interest rates, we can look to buy down the interest rates. We can look to do 2-1 buy downs, maybe a temporary, kind of a teaser, but a temporary loan where, for the first year, the rate is 2% lower than what the going rate is. And the second year, it's 1% lower than the going rate is. So we have different variables to try to help people ease themselves into a situation to make sure that the affordability is there. We want to make sure that we just don't pre-approve you per se, but we want to make sure what you're affordable to do.
Can you explain the buy down a little bit further? I'm going to be honest, that's something I've never heard of before. So I'm thinking other people, maybe they have, maybe they haven't, but that's an interesting concept. So how does that work?
Yeah, so it's a temporary buy down. It's called a like for example, it's a 2-1 buy down.
Okay.
So the first year you can actually buy down your interest rate 2%. So let's say if the going rate was 7, it would mean that the first year the payment would be 5, and then the second year the payment would be 6 before it goes back up to that 7. And what you do with that, the concept is that you maybe look at doing the temporary buy down in hopes that, hey, you're saying, hey, in a 2-year window, maybe the rates do drop. So then I can then refinance and lock in at that lower rate, but I'm still taking advantage of a lower payment for my first couple of years into the property. So it's a great tool that we've used to try to help people ease them in. I mean, obviously, depending on people's budgets, sometimes it is uncomfortable saying $3,000 a month or 3,500 a month. That's not something that is palatable or affordable for people. So obviously, we try to find ways to reduce that mortgage payment.
Oh, excellent. And now, what would you say in terms of percentage of people you work with who do have, like economic concerns where it is very difficult moving into that first house or upgrading to something else, and perhaps they have to do a buy down or maybe even use some of the, federal assistance, those types of programs?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot. I mean, I don't know the exact percentage per se, but I mean probably 8 out of 10 people that want to do something. There's either it comes down to three things on a pre-approval. It's credit, income, and assets. And so is it a credit situation? Is it an income situation? Or is it an asset situation? So we have to kind of figure out where the problem lies and what can we do with it. Because obviously what you qualified for in 2015 is not necessarily what you qualify for in 2024. The rules and the real estate market change on a year-to-year basis. And so that's what makes difficulty for consumers because it's like, oh, I heard about these rules. A lot of times it's about relationships. So you're going to, hey, I want to buy a house. And then you tell your friends, and then your friends who maybe have gone down that path want to tell you everything that they went through and all their experiences, but they might have bought their house 4 years ago. Well, the game's changed.
Sure
So
has.
all that information is outdated. Now, some of it is simplistic, right? There's going to be an appraisal, underwriting. I mean, some basics are there, but how we look at income, how we decipher things, it might have changed. There might be some nuances that have changed what, is being offered today versus yesterday. So sometimes it's almost unfair for them to give you that, they want to help, but then they actually create more stress, right? There's more stress because like, oh, well, my friend said this, this, and this. And then my mom said, who bought 20 years ago, she said this, this, and this. And then you come to me and then I say different, well, no, we don't do that anymore. This is how it's done anymore. You know what I mean? So it is a situation where it's very stressful to buy a house, just in general. I mean, not to mention, hey, I'm buying a house, and then all of a sudden you have all these people in your life. You have a mortgage lender. You have a realtor. Now you have a real estate attorney if you're in Illinois. Um, Now you have a seller. You got a seller's agent. You got a title company you have to go to. You got a home inspector.
Mm,
You start labeling all these people. You're waiting on the funding, so you have a funder involved. You're about 10 people in every transaction, and you're like, I don't know any of these people, and you're meeting them, and for 30 to 45 days, you're hopeful that everything goes nice and smooth, and we're trying to take you down the path of home ownership. So it is a stressful time. And then obviously, once you're in the house, maintaining that house, the affordability. One thing I heard a long time ago and I loved it, buying a home is like buying an expensive hobby because there's always something that needs to be done to that house.
true.
There's always, a remodel of a kitchen, remodel of a bathroom. Or I don't like this paint anymore. The honeydews, the outside, Lord, Lord knows oh, now I got to get a new roof. Am I going to patch it or am I going to just tear it off? New siding, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's always something going on. And so you have to be able to balance that and, utilize and leverage this mortgage and this asset that you have because the one good thing is that for the test of time only 7 years in the last 80 years has values either stayed flat or down. Values are always going up.
No, that's good to know. And, as you were saying, there's always something to do with the house in terms of maintaining. And some of us are more hands on than others. I love YouTube and other do it yourself websites to be able to learn how to do new things. And obviously, I wouldn't go and change a circuit breaker or anything like that. That's outside of anything I would do. I don't want to kill myself here because I'm not a professional with that. But a lot of these different things can be very fun to learn how to do on your own, or even when it comes to landscaping outside of my house. A lot of people, might have some somebody else cut the grass, and you're like, well, why don't you do that? You're a busy professional. I'm like, well, I love it. It's my self-care. I love the way it looks when it's done. I love being outside. I love the smell of the cut grass, but that's not for everybody. And this kind of leads into my next question. So, we have some different mentalities in terms of, is it better to lease or rent something versus purchasing a home? So, obviously there's a financial consideration. As you said, purchasing a home can be a stressful experience. You're dealing with 10 different people. You feel to a great extent, maybe you're signing your life away. There's a lot of money on the line. And then ultimately, if there is damage to your house or you want something improved, that ultimately falls on you. Whereas for an apartment, you pay your first and last month's rent, the security deposit. They're the ones who are taking care of the landscaping outside. If something breaks inside, that's typically on them to repair for you. And a lot of things can already get taken care of. So I'm wondering, in terms of that debate, lease versus purchase something, what are some of your general thoughts there, perhaps even trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think of one person in particular. She bought a house. I helped her buy a house, and she probably was in the house for maybe 3 to 4 years. She had been predominantly always a renter, and finally, decided, hey, I want to hit this milestone, right? I mean, there's so many things that, just in the course of a human's life that, are certain milestones that we've kind of created the American dream, quote unquote. So she got the home, and after, 3, 4 years, she said, this is it. I want to go back to renting. And it almost took me off guard a little bit, like, really? But, she was used to calling the landlord when something was fixed, that needed to be fixed, not having to deal with some of those things, having to, coordinate, contractors to come in and give her prices. It was stressful. It was too much for her. So, kind of going back to, my original just answer, you're like, I'm a guidance counselor. There is no right or wrong. There's so gray matter that we have to deal with. It's whatever suits you and what you feel comfortable with. But I do understand, that, hey, there are some pros and cons to, basically renting and leasing. There are some pros and cons to owning a home. I know that Epic Mortgage, was created because I had equity in my house. It's very hard as a entrepreneur that wants to start up a business, and you go into a bank and say, "Hey, I want to start a business and I need X amount of dollars." And they say, "Well, do you have any, prior experience of being an owner of a mortgage company?" No, but I know I can do it. That's not really how you get a that's not how you get a loan. Yeah,
Yes.
that bank, financing is not going to be like, oh, well, he sounded good. His conviction right there sold me on that. No, so without that proven, confidence, they're not going to give you a loan. So you really have to have some assets and some money of your own to take advantage of to maybe start that business. So if you do have dreams and you have goals that you want to accomplish in your life, if you want to start something and make something happen for yourself, you don't have to ask for permission. Obviously, if you're eligible and you can qualify to get the money that's really stuck in your walls, right? All this equity that it appreciates, it's money, but it's stuck in your wall. And so we work on leveraging your house and having that be the collateral and getting that money out of your walls and into your hands because you believe in a better day. And I love obviously my story, but there's others, that I've helped start businesses from doing cash out refinances. They were tired of working for, the man or whatever situation they had going on. And they said, man, but I'm really good at being a mechanic, or I'm really good. I got this great idea of starting a bakery. And I've been able to say, okay, let's take this money, let's extract the money from these walls that you have because you have the house, and let's start it. It's tax-free money and make it happen for yourself. So it's those are opportunities. But yeah, going back to the original question, it's up to the individual. I think we got to go back to the old school with the yellow pad, and you put the middle, put the line right down the middle, and really just write the pros and cons and see what's best for you.
No, and I love the way that you answered that here, because as you said, there's a lot of money it's locked inside of these walls that you have around you. And it's really something to think about, because again, throughout life, different things come up. Maybe you have some type of emergency, maybe you have different types of life goals. Maybe, hey, you want to take some money out and get a vacation home or an RV or so many other different types of options. And I think that that's another type of mentality that, some people have, other people don't have, maybe some shift over time, but beyond this necessarily being your house where you're raising your family, and doing whatever you're doing. You have equity that's building up in this. This is actually a savings account for people. And I like how you just gave the example from your experience in terms of starting Epic Mortgage and doing a cash out refinance. And I've heard of some other options too. There's something called a HELOC. What is that? A home line of credit. And then there's some
Mhm.
other options you could do. Would you mind running through those
Sure.
briefly, for example, for people who might be interested?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I mean, obviously, you bought a house. If you bought a house probably in the last decade, you probably have an interest rate less than, let's just say 6%. So you have this interest rate. Some people have two. Lowest, Miss Sanders out there, I got her the 1.75%
What?
15-year
Oh,
fix.
wow, that is
So,
amazing.
yeah, so shout out to Miss Sanders. But,
Shout
so I
out to
mean,
you too.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So, I mean, basically, people have interest rates from, 1 to 6% interest rate in the last decade or so. So, they may not be interested in, refinancing and paying off that existing mortgage and getting money out because obviously rates are higher right now than where they were. So, what you can do is look to take basically, a long story short, it's a second mortgage. You would take out a second mortgage. You have a decision to make whether it's and what you were saying, a HELOC. A HELOC is a home equity line of credit. It's similar to a credit card. The collateral is your house. So it's a second mortgage that you're taking out, and it has the flexibility of a credit card. So you could, let's say you took a line out for $50,000 and then you needed it for something, and then you had the ability to pay it off. And then it's still open. Usually it's open for a time frame. So you have the ability to, take the money in and out and kind of use it as like a savings account almost whenever you need the money, and then you only pay on what you take out. Now, the other one is what is called like a HE loan, which is more of a fixed rate product on the second mortgage. So if you knew, hey, I need 50,000, maybe you're paying off credit cards. That's something we've been doing. I helped a family out in Joliet where we paid off about $80,000 of credit card debt, along with IRS tax liens and stuff. We took out a HE loan because they just, well, I don't need, once we pay this off, it's off. So they just wanted to have everything consolidated so they could save. They were saving over $1,500 a month just in the consolidation. Usually, the second mortgage, the HELOC and the HE loans are usually less than a credit card interest rate, but higher than a first mortgage interest rate. So right now, obviously based on this taping, we're July of 24, you would see interest rates somewhere in the 9s to 12% kind of range per se. And so it's a great opportunity, so that way you don't have to touch your first mortgage because that's what some people are like, oh, no, no, I don't want to do any of that refinance because I
Scary.
have 2% interest rate. I got 3%, and they don't want to make the bad decision. And there's really not right or wrong, but if it makes sense to maybe get the second mortgage out, we can definitely do that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and with all of this being said here, wondering, we're talking a lot about the numbers, and I know that a lot of things could certainly go wrong. And my head keeps going back to, moving and having these 10 individuals involved, and you're hoping everything's going right. And especially if, let's say, your second plus time, purchaser of a home, maybe you're selling your home, you need your home, everything to go smoothly from that buyer. And then you have to hope everything goes smoothly with the seller you're purchasing from. I'm wondering what other types of stressors do you see beyond the money that can be very challenging that you continually deal with your clients?
Yeah, like you said, communication. Communication is a definite a challenge just because we have a lot of different people, right? We're a huge melting pot from just generations. We still have baby boomers that are selling their house. They're downsizing now. Their kids are now graduated college, and they're like, oh, this 4 bedroom, 2 bath, 2-story house is too big for us. My knees hurt, right? I need to sell this house. I need a ranch style house. So, it's just too big for us, and the maintenance, right? To all that hobby work that we talked about earlier is starting to come to play now where it's like, man, I don't want to cut the grass anymore. I just want something simple. So downsize we see also, the millennials, right? The millennials are upgrading. They may have bought the condo. Now they got married. Now they're on their third or second child. So now they're like, hey, I need more room. Oh man, I need more room. This is not enough. Or they're paying attention to school districts, right? That's a huge importance for people. So now it's like, hey, I really want to get them in District 203, or I got to get them in District 301, or what have you. So that's a huge major stressor of like, we have to move because I got to get them in this school district because I want the best opportunities for your kids. Who doesn't, right? And then obviously, you have your first time home buyers just trying to get out of mom's house, right? I'm living in the basement. I'm tired of mom's rules. I want to have my own place, and now it's a struggle because I'm trying to save money. You know what I mean? I got to have all this money now, and because that's the mentality that people, just had a conversation just earlier, and she's got about $20,000, and but it's really her credit score right now. She's more in the FHA world, and in some pockets and areas, FHA is just not a loan program that is highly desirable. Because the majority of people in that type of neighborhood, are more conventional buyers. And so anytime, there's usually a tier section when you look at buying homes. If you're an FHA buyer and it's highly concentrated conventional loans in that area, your offer may not get accepted, because sometimes there's fears that go with the loan programs that we have. Some people may be like, well, um, I heard the appraisals are very strict on FHA versus conventional, so I don't want to take that risk per se. So there are some challenges depending on what loan program that you have that can be stressful too, because will they accept my offer? So in the instance of the lady that called me, we were talking about maybe saving up more money so she could qualify for a conventional loan. Hey, maybe if we can get 10% down, then I can flip you to a conventional buyer, and then you'll look stronger in the eyes of the seller, and maybe they'll accept your offer. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into just the whole process, because you're trying to get the seller to say yes to you. And like you mentioned, with low inventory, there's a lot of multiple bid situations. So now you have almost, for every 6 homes, you have 10 buyers. You still have a strong a buyer pool, because what one stat that I really appreciate learning was millennials back in like 23 have taken over baby boomers. So
Mm.
millennials are the largest group population that we have right now. And so their age group is, basically 27 to about 43, prime time to be a first time home buyer. So that's where, it's an interesting market right now, because the demand is still very strong. It's very strong right now just because, simply put, the major population is the millennials. So now you have this multiple bid situation, meaning you have more than one person bidding on the same house, and maybe it's the only house in the block, or maybe it's the only house in that school district, and everyone's vying for it. So now we're seeing, what a purchase price may be 400,000, you got to push it up because, it's the highest bid that will win potentially. So there's a lot of stressors that go on with buying a home. Obviously what I try to do is understand the situation that people are in, respect that, and do the best I can to just try to keep everything calm going through the process. Sometimes even underwriting, right? Going through the underwriters looking at it a different way, and you need them to look at it this way. And, it's my job to kind of convey, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we need to do and to get the deal done. And that's stressful for me, but that's also stressful for you, because if the deal blows up, now where do I go?
Mm.
Like you said, in your instance, if you were selling your house and buying a new house, and the underwriter is saying, I don't like this loan, I mean, everything that you had planned, I mean, no one wants to be homeless, and no one has to want to have that moment of like, well, where are we going to go? So, it's a lot of responsibility that I take on my shoulders, understanding people's situations and what we have to do with it.
Absolutely. And when it comes to those FHA loans, and I know that there's, a huge challenge, especially, on the seller's end, if they see FHA versus conventional, they're going to lean toward the conventional. Yeah, but I'm wondering, how does FHA ultimately help individuals who might otherwise go without getting a home? Like, what's the structure with it? Who benefits from this? Just really, how does that work out?
Yeah, I mean, there's much more flexibility on the underwrite as far as income goes on FHA. FHA is the Federal Housing Administration. They were designed to focus on first-time home buyers and really to help them, achieve the American dream. So they provide a lot of flexibility. So let's say husband and wife. Let's say the wife has a low credit score. She never really established credit, but the husband has excellent credit. Um, but let's just say, but we need both incomes. We can still use her credit score. I mean, so they're really open to flexibility on the credit scores. They're really open to flexibility on, looking at the income. They are a little bit tighter when it comes to appraisals. That is a true statement. But it's mainly safety and hazard concerns. So it's nothing like out of this world. But you do have some sellers that, opt not wanting to fix anything. I want to sell it just as is. I don't want to touch anything.
Mhm.
Okay. And there's reasons for that. I mean, sometimes they don't have the financial means. They don't know who to call. And sometimes they just have kind of a chip on their shoulder. I've been here for 20, 30 years and I figured it out. Let you figure it out. Well, it those are tough situations, obviously, if you're dealing with an FHA buyer, because some of those items may be addressed on the appraisal of like, no, sorry, those things have to be done. And then, we have to figure it out. So those are tough.
Because I remember like an issue with the sub pump with our first house, and it took days extra to close. Like I could just put a new one in myself. Nope, the bank won't let you. They have to take care of it from this on. Well, I'm wondering. I'm going to put you on the spot here for a moment. Thinking back throughout your career, what was, and you can give one or two examples, doesn't need to be the most intense one ever, but what do you think was one of the biggest challenges brought forth to you by a client where initially you thought, I don't know if I can even figure this out, but ultimately you did figure it out and you got that individual or family into the home? I see you smiling right now. I'm sure you've had
Yeah.
many of those.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some tough ones throughout my career, but I mean, overall, yeah, it's always fulfilling, I would say, just in general. It's fulfilling when people have doubt and you're able to show them, right? I mean, there's countless times that people maybe they went to the bank first, I mean, sometimes there is my mom told me to go to the bank because that's how she bought her house, or maybe there's a situation where you went to the family person, because, I heard my cousin does this, but he just may not be as well versed, or he may not have all the products that I have. So, sometimes, people come and they're like, man, so and so said I can't qualify. Can you help me? Or they told me to call you now. And so they have doubt in their mind. And anytime you can kind of change that doubt into a positive, I mean, those are always feel good situations. I mean, there's times, I mean, countless times just throughout. I mean, I've been doing it for, 20 plus years. So, we've had people living in a hotel. I had a customer, living in a hotel in Florida, and, and obviously it was stressful, and being able to get them out of that hotel into a house was, I mean, very gratifying. There's been divorce situations where people are getting a divorce, and they're just in such a negative, toxic situation, and they're trying to get out to buy a house, and so they can move away from the negativity. So anytime we're able to help people in that fashion, those are always feel good moments for me.
No, absolutely. And then another question that comes to mind, especially in a world where every dollar counts, and we know things certainly add up. 1 percentage point can mean hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars of a difference, when it comes to a mortgage and the amount of money that we're spending. So I'm wondering, in terms of hiring a realtor versus for sale by owner versus, using something like Zillow, what are the benefits and why should individuals want to pay more, to hire a realtor who's going to charge a higher percentage than listing it yourself or, going on a website like Zillow, Redfin, and things like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And obviously that just hits kind of with the current market with some of these new rules that are going to come into play. I mean, I think, in my line of work, along with the realtor's line of work, I mean, we have to provide value. And the value that we have to provide has to mean something to you individually. It's not going to be across the board. So, I can't, what I may be able to do for you, I may not be able to do for the next person. So, and what you see as value may not be what another person sees as a value. But I think a realtor in this position has to show their expertise in the marketplace. It may have to, and the game may change to be more localized, being that local lender that really knows, hey, if you buy in this block, this is not a good block for you because, you know, uh, Aunt May's grandkids are really bad, and they play baseball in the backyard, and they've broken a couple windows that you didn't know about. Having that localized expertise in an area to get you that information that you really covet and want to know means a lot, in this marketplace. And I don't think you can get that from doing it yourself. I mean, obviously, just in general, realtors have the MLS database. I mean, so you have, especially in the Chicagoland area, you have 50,000 realtors. So, to have that many, the power, like that huge megaphone that everyone sees your property and having the opportunity to really market your property, it may move it quicker, potentially. I mean, I do understand where a person may say, hey, I'll just for sale by owner situation because right now there's so lack of inventory. I can just take advantage and save that money. So it's case by case. I do see where that can be a thing. And but I just think, an expertise or some type of value that you may not recognize, like, oh, I didn't know that. Or just even, writing contracts and, that might be even if you went to your attorney to do that, he's going to charge you by the hour, generally speaking. And so, I mean, there might be just some savings overall working with a realtor. And I do feel like there's savings overall when you work with a broker. I have access to multiple lenders. I shop every day based on the market. So, I can offer different products and programs and rates in particular, so I feel like those are the things of value that we probably possess.
No, absolutely. And that's important. And I think that's something, a strong mentality to have here. And that, okay, maybe spending a little bit more working with a mortgage broker, working with a realtor, but in the long term, I can end up saving money, end up saving heartache, and that can make a big difference, especially, with realtors knowing where their price point is, should we list a little bit lower to get into a bidding war? I'll never forget when we were looking for our first home when we were pregnant with, Blanca. And I love how she was just so cutthroat honest with every house we walked in. There were some houses that were like, oh, this one's gorgeous. And she would crawl into a crawl space, be like, nope, water damage. Let's go. Don't even look at it. Or, she would see something. She's like, clearly this isn't right. Let's just get out of here. The place has a weird feeling. And it was just ever so helpful. And I appreciated having that honesty because, truthfully, without that type of guidance, could have made a huge mistake and maybe spending a little bit more on the realtor on the front end ended up saving again thousands or tens of thousands later on down the line. And some of the other things you talked about with the local market, a lot of people, especially if they do have kids, are looking for the good school districts. And think about it, if you're not living in a good school district and you want to send your kids to private school, what, 5, 10, 15, 20, like some of these schools cost as much as going to university, and that can be expensive. So now let's say you live outside of that ideal neighborhood you wanted with the school district, and then you're spending $15,000 a child per year on school and private school. That adds up. And these are the types of things to think about, why it's so important to consult with somebody like you and otherwise. And so I know I want to be mindful of time as we're winding down. But before we got on this recording here, we had a very heartwarming conversation about fatherhood, about being an entrepreneur, work-life balance, and really trying to, make sure that we're navigating life accordingly there. And we're feeling fulfilled. And while you do get a lot of fulfillment, seeing the smile on your clients' faces as they move into their new home, it's one of the most exciting times in life. Also, you have your family around you, your children who are there, every day or most every day with you, and really trying to be a part of their lives while you're building something bigger. I'm wondering, so what are some of your general thoughts, and you'd speak to what we were discussing here earlier on, balancing entrepreneurship with family?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously, I'm a father, I'm a husband, and then, I'm an entrepreneur, and so it is hard to really have work-life balance. I don't think it's all going to be 50-50-50. I mean,
No.
if you look at the three, I don't think it's going to be 33-33-33. So it's very difficult, but it's rewarding. Obviously, I love what I do. I love to help people, and when they achieve their goals, I know I was a part of that, and I feel gracious about that. But obviously I enjoy being a dad. And I enjoy being a husband. I feel like, the husband and wife, it's teamwork. It's, we're working together. It's a partnership. It's not a everyday, is great and grand. It's a grind. I mean, we've made a commitment. I think our goals and our dreams are, unison in nature. So we may want to get there in different ways, but I think overall we're both moving in the right direction. And and raising kids, it's been, it's funny. It's like I was kind of slow on having kids. I waited a little bit later in life to have kids. I was kind of like, I don't want to get them in my way. I want to do my thing first, and then I would have kids, and so that kind of was kind of my mindset. But I've just had so much fun. I've enjoyed it. I enjoy just watching them, and I kind of feel like a role model, right? I feel like they're watching me. I mean, they sometimes mimic stuff that I say and things that I do, and so it makes me work harder, even just instinctively. I want to show them, this is how it is to work hard. This is how it is to be successful, or at least try to be. And so I really take pride in that. Yeah, I enjoy my time with them. And I do work a lot, that people that do know me, they know like, oh man, you're still in the office. I'm still there. But it's that much more for me when I get to see them and spend time with them. Over the weekend we went to birthday parties, and we went to we got to see a Mean Girls play, and we got to see the Chicago Sky game, and that was so much fun just to be with them, hang out, and enjoy those moments. And really can't do that unless I'm successful at work. So it kind of works and balances each other out.
No, absolutely. And one of the important things that you said in there too, I couldn't agree with you more. And especially when it comes to the partnership with your spouse, my wife and I balance each other out quite well. She's goes in into everything more cynical than I do, whereas I'm all, like happy-go-lucky, optimistic, and certainly need that voice of reason, here often. But, when it comes to the family, the kids, like you said, it's not really about trying to do a 50-50 thing, one third, one third, one third. It doesn't always work out that way. When we try to make it work that way, it can be very frustrating, but just really adapting, as you have the time, spend the additional time. When you have less time, negotiate that with your family, ensure they're taken care of, explain what's going on, and that's really what works, for my family as well. I'll explain some weeks are going to be a lot busier than other ones. Last week was an extremely busy week with a lot of stuff to get done. This week we have a holiday, so now I'm trying to condense as much of my work as I can in the first couple or few days of the week, so it's going to look a little bit different, but then it's going to be freed up the rest of the week to be able to spend with them, and they've come to recognize that and appreciate it. So again, it just goes down to that whole living in balance. As we're getting ready to conclude here in this podcast, and thank you again so much for being here and everything you've done for me personally as well as other people. I'm wondering, what are some of Dante Royster's words of wisdom? Like, what do you wish to impart on everybody listening to this? If there was only one or a couple or few points, what would they be?
Well, once again, I appreciate you and the opportunity to speak to your audience, and thank you so much. Words of wisdom for me, I kind of live every day as it's your last. I like that, and probably the Dave Ramsey. What does he say? You know, y- to live like no one else, you have to be willing to live like no one else.
It's true.
And so, there is sacrifice, there is delayed gratification in overall success. I mean, for most of us, we're not going to be overnight, wow, we weren't blessed with that talent per se, and we've developed skills over time that have made us who we are. And so it just takes time. And so we have to sometimes make those sacrifices, like we talked about with our families,
Mhm.
and it's not always ideal, and you have to have a good support system. You have to have a good village that will back you on that. And I can't agree with you more. There's times where it's like, hey, I'm at work, and I doesn't look, I don't know when I'm coming home. I'll be there though eventually. And you have to have a team that understands that. I mean, it's not ideal. It's not what I wanted, but things obviously, especially in the mortgage business, dealing with people, things happen, things come up last minute, and you have to deal with them. Don't want them to linger. So, yeah, I think those are kind of things that I would say. And then, I got one more that really sticks with me, which I love. It's if you want change, if you want change in your life, you have to be willing to change or you'll have to change what's in your life. Something like that. Where something about change, but it's like, the change starts within you first. Let's just leave it like that. The change starts within you. You have to really kind of set goals and lead those to your dreams, and anything is possible.
No, absolutely. And it really does start with that mentality. I think it was Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And it goes in that whole self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't believe that you can achieve something, well, then you're already shooting yourself in the foot because you don't have the right mentality. You're not going to work toward it, and you're just going to ultimately stay where you are. People are creatures of habit. We hate stepping outside of our comfort zones. And that's one of the most challenging things we could do. And time and time and time and time and time again, exponentially, people would rather sit in a minimally to moderate stressful irritating type of situation than step out of the comfort zone and do what needs to be done to make the change to ultimately receive what it is that they want out of life. So these are important words of wisdom I appreciate. Well, in conclusion here, Dante, I'm wondering, how can our listeners get a hold of you?
Oh, definitely. Well, the office is 708-905-5300. We're right in Brookfield, Illinois, so we're local here for the Illinois community. You can reach us, on all social media platforms. We're on, YouTube, and we're on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. So those are the best places to catch us. And yeah, if you just have any questions, definitely give us a call or reach us online.
All right, Dante Royster of Epic Mortgage. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us here today. Greatly appreciate all your words of wisdom. And I'm excited for more lives that you're going to change moving forward and work that you do. And I'm certain that you've helped many people who are listening to this right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.